to tonight's event. More people joining as we speak. I want to start to say that we are recording this session today, so please keep your microphones on mute so we don't get any background noise. And if you guys have a question or anything, feel free to raise your hand, or you can just write it in the chat field and we'll take it time by time. Jordy will be presenting the new stuff we have for this year, and so we'll take some time for doing some questions after each section, and then we'll save up some time as well in the end for more questions. So let's see if I can share my screen here, and then over to you, Jordy.
Yeah, we have a very nice format for the presentation. It's basically we didn't prepare much and we completely go with the flow. This is usually how I experience everything. Everything works best in clinics, in windsurf presentations of products and stuff. So I'm sure it will work out. Again, we go through all the new items after every, as Tobias said, subject. So after every kind of item, we're gonna have a little pause, let's say, for questions. So once we did the mast, if you have any questions regarding the mast, you can ask them. Then we do the front wings. Any questions of the front wings, you can ask them. And so we go through basically all the new toys we are presenting today. In the meantime, I also think we will mention the existing products which are completely fitting together with the new products, because to have a complete range, I think it makes sense again to mention those as well. And I think from what I remember on the presentation that Tobias has on his screen, so I think if he's small in your section, I would pin him to be in your main screen. I'm just sitting here and talking, but he will have something to show. As you will now most likely see the new slalom wings we have for this year. With a little side note, as I think there's somebody not on mute.
Yeah, I managed to mute them now, so we should be all good.
As the smallest wing in the slalom section is most likely more a speed wing. It's the 375. It's the smallest wing we have so far. Very excited to try this one. I had a little go already, but it sounds a bit. Felix, I think, is stoked to have a go on it soon, as he has showing one in his hands. It's quite funny how my perception is changing, because I took the wing, I went out, I did 35 knots, and I was kind of like, fuck, I need to try it another day, because 35 knots, this wing is made to make 40 knots, and obviously, as easy as it sounds, you need the right conditions to do this, so jumping on this wing in 2 reaches, I was doing 35 knots. It was really incredibly quick. But obviously I was aiming for more, so I can't wait for the conditions to arrive for myself personally to try the 40 knots challenge, as they call it. But this wing should have the potential to do so. I think for slalom sailing, it's a touch small. Why? In slalom, there's a lot of other elements, right? There's a starting line. There is 7 or more people trying to either hunt you down, or you're trying to hunt them down. Obviously, the goal is for them to hunt you down. Of course, this means you're leading, but it means you have to go up and down. Yeah, you need to make tight jibes, inside jibes, outside jibes, and the smaller the surface, the more sensitive it becomes. Like, the speed potential gets higher, but all the maneuverability stuff is simply more tricky as it's small. So I think for slalom racing, I at least won't be using it as it's too small. For me, it really is a speed wing. It's just to hit the highest speeds possible. So far, my record is, I think, 37.6 knots or something, but this was with the 420, so quite a bit bigger wing. So quite excited to again break records on the 375. Going to the slalom wings, the new one, we have the 400. I had a session comparing the 400 and the 420 really close to each other. I think that's quite a important thing for you guys to know what exactly the main differences are, because the 400, just like the 375 and the 660, has a complete new it's basically redesigned. It's not, it doesn't have the same profile and stuff like the 420, the 560, the 620, and all those kind of wings. And it sounds maybe funny, but the 400 is better for me in, let's say, lighter winds than the old 420. Like for example, the stall speed and the jibing really improved for the wing being so small. Like the 420 we had last year was incredibly quick. Again, I was doing over 37 knots. Also in the races, I felt very, very quick. Just in the jibing and those kind of stuff, I felt it was a bit sensitive. Again, very quick, but not on slow speeds. It tend to drop, while the 400 basically doesn't have that at all. Like you really feel that on low speeds you keep on flying. Therefore, in the jibes and stuff, it's simply much better, much better maneuverability. And therefore a very well improved small slalom wing, I believe, compared to the 400, compared to the 420 we had. So that's mostly the two new wings we have for the higher winds. Again, the 400 I'm using from, let's say, 23 knots on. Like the 560 we have really is a all-round machine, I would say. Now I see straight a question coming in, and I will, because I wanted to talk about the 560, I will straight answer this one. Is the 560 outdated in the slalom range? No, it's not at all. I think we have three wings, or let's say, we have three wings here, but I think to jump from the 400 to the 660 is a huge jump. And previously we had a three-wing registration for PWA, where we thought until December it was going to be like this, and now suddenly everything changed. But I would have definitely chosen the 400, the 560, and the 660, or 620 for PWA, because we start a little bit later. And national races, definitely the 660 comes into place, but I will jump into that later. We focus now a little bit more on the 560 still, because the wing has by far the biggest range, I believe, from all the wings, because I can use it with a 9-meter, and I can use it until 5-meter. Like at the moment, I'm only on a medium and a big wing, which means I'm sailing on the 560 up to 30 knots. It's crazy, and for quite a big size, the 560 has an insane amount of control. And in the meantime, it holds a 9-meter. So is the 560 outdated? Definitely not. Like it's still performing very well. It's still very fast. On the race course, I'm doing up to 35 knots on that wing, which is incredibly fast, considering we have to go from mark to mark, and we're not just free shooting downwind. The 560 is definitely a wing I believe most people should have in their range, especially as their I would say mid-wind kind of go-to wing. The 400, again, from 20 knots on, depending on your weight. I'm 96, 97 kilos, so 22, 23 knots, then I can start using this wing. The 375 a little bit later, again, a bit more wind, over 25 knots. While the 560 I can use between 13 knots and 28 knots. That kind of range. It obviously also depends in what kind of wind conditions you are sailing, and again, it also depends on your weight, because lighter riders will jump to smaller wings quicker. Then we finish up with the 660 before we jump into more questions. The 660 is our new light wind machine. Last year I was sometimes struggling a little bit on the very light on the 620, and therefore we decided to make a bigger 660 front wing, which I believe is for light winds. The wing is insane. I was going here in Tenerife, which is the perfect playground to test all the stuff. And when it was really marginal, or for PWA, I would say too light, I think I was the only one who finished all races, flying all jibes, and basically making all starts. Because there was also always some people dropping off or whatever, and I was just flying all the time. So I believe the 660, if you live on a place with usual light winds, or very light thermic winds, or you're towards 100 kilo, the 660 will really give you the performance you need for slalom sailing in light winds. I think it's really the best wing you can get for light winds. Also for national races, as national races really tend to get pushed in very light winds, while the PWA, it's a bunch of heavy boys. Like they say we race in 5 knots, but we almost never do. Like it's always 10 knots, sometimes with gusting already more. That's why I'm using still the 620 most of the time, but I definitely have the 660 in my van for national races, because I feel so safe on that wing. But of course, a lot of people who are here are not sailing PWA. They are either cruising at home, or they're doing some national races. And if you live on a spot where it is very light, and you are searching for a wing to always fly, I would really recommend you to get the 660. I wanted to say it's time for questions, and I straight away see one coming up. How do you compare? Oh, I have to go to the chat. How do you compare the new 660 with the old 720? I mean, for me personally, the old 720 was for slalom sailing actually always too big. Like it for sure has an insane light wind because it's so big. But it's never really 5 to 7 knots or 5 to 8 knots. When it's 5 to 8 knots, that wing was great. But the moment it's actually 5 to 12 knots, 5 to 13 knots, you know for me, with my weight, at least I felt it was quite tricky, um when in the gusts already, because of the power, while the 660 therefore has a bigger range. Like, yeah, it performs well in the light winds, but the moment it either picks up a little bit or the gusts are already a bit stronger, I can simply control it better. So the biggest difference compared to the 720 and 660 is, I would say, is the range you get out of the wing. Yeah. Next question. What backwing sizes are you using with just these 3 wings? I am actually using the 190 like 80% of the time. It's really it's I would say also a little bit personal. I see a lot of people who really like to still use, for example, the 210, as it is more powerful, but therefore easier to ride. Like the small back wing, you feel it has more glide. The whole foil just simply wants to go, but it's not something everybody easily can control. Therefore, I think it's like, if I would need to get away with one back wing, I would pick the 190. But I'm also, I'm making a lot of hours on the foil. Like I'm quite technical riding the foil, and therefore for me it's also in light winds very easy to still go on the 190, where I see other people really needing the power of the 210 or the 200 to either get up, to jibe, or to go through the wind lulls. And therefore I think for light winds again, I recommend you the 210. And I'm always using the 190, but for stronger winds for sure, the 190 is recommended. And then the fuselage, yeah, let's jump to the fuselage section maybe afterwards. Is there any more questions regarding the front wings?
I had some questions from people who couldn't join today that will watch the recording later. Which is your favorite wing of these new wings?
Of the new wings, I mean, I'm definitely most excited about the 375 because I'm quite hungry to hunt some speeds down, right? So for that reason, I'm super excited for the 375. But beside that, it's hard to pick a favorite. I mean, in light winds, I'm not gonna favorite the 400, right? Because I will never be able to use it. um, so yeah, like it's three wings without the overlap, and as I maybe described before, each wing um, has a great function of where it's made for, and there is no overlap, so it's hard to pick a favorite. But for sure, I was the most like ooh to go with the 375, just because it's something I didn't have in the range yet. And being so fast already on the 420, I knew I can go faster on the 375. So that was obviously a huge motivation for that wing. More questions, Tobias, from the
Yeah, we got another one in the chat. Which sail size do you use with the 400?
It's I can use 6.4, 5.4, and 4.6, I believe, is our new range. Every, especially this year, I think every sail brand has different sizes. I see people with a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 meter. I've seen, yeah, we have 4.6, 5.4, 6.4. There's 5.7, 6.7. So let's pick the smallest and the biggest. You know, the 400 you can ride with the smallest sail possible. I think it's a 4.5 in terms of race sail. Some actually have a 3.7 or something like this. That's definitely something you can use with this wing. I think for speed it will hold up, maybe even a 7.5. It's technical to ride. It's just for speed surfing. Don't expect you have a great upwind or whatsoever. But until 7 meter, I would say it can work really well for slalom sailing. So between 4 and 7 meters, quite a wide range in strong winds. The wing will perform well, and it's always depending on your technique. The bigger the sail you put, the technical it gets, because the sail is simply weight and power, and the more power and weight the wing has to handle, the more it requires you to be steady in your sailing, in your foiling. But for me, I can comfortably take up to a 7 meter on the 400 wing. I hope that answers that question well. Awesome. I think so.
Right. If we don't have any more questions about the wings, we could actually jump over to the new fuselages since we don't have a slide for these today.
Yeah,
If you want.
I think Mimo wanted to call it the Jordy fuselage, because I was
I
asked.
did, but you didn't let me.
You did? No, true. I thought we keep it technical with numbers written on it. No, because I was pushing for a 105 fuselage. Why? Because a long fuselage gives more stability and more power. But I was believing for slalom sailing, the 110 fuselage was too powerful. It was too much. I had the feeling that the moment the wind got strong, I had a bit too much uplifting power, which again is something which is not bad on lakes and stuff where you simply don't have much power, or like I'm quite a, let's say, efficient sailor, so I don't need so much power to get going. But a lot of people are not, and there the 110 can be kind of nice to have the power so you can have a stable flight. But for me, I needed something with more power compared to the 100 plus 3, but not as much as the 110. So well, we met in the middle. We made a 105, which actually comes in two different configurations. Is the 105 plus 5 and the 105 plus 7.5. Personally, I'm using the plus 7.5, so this means it has the front wing a bit more to the front, or the mast on the fuselage a little bit more to the back, depending on what way you look at it. That the one with the 7.5 has a touch more power than the plus 5. But what I really like is, and I was testing this together with Johan Sue, the Danish huge but young guy who's doing really well in the PWA last year. Um, um, it really rides and gives you a bit more the feeling when you ride the 100 plus 3 fuselage, but you simply have more power. So it really feels like, first of all, I have a bigger range, because when the gusts are coming, I'm not feeling scared. Like I feel like I can still push and I can still hang and get the maximum out of it without flying away. And the speeds we're doing on quite a long fuselage, I would say, is really insane. I was doing 32, 33 knots on the 105 fuselage once the wind was picking up. And but yeah, again, in competitions, you are out there, you need to wait for the starting line. The wind can go up or down, and with the 105 fuselage, I really feel like I have a big range out of the fuselage, whereas with the 110, I was scared that if the wind would pick up too much, I couldn't hold it anymore. So that's the whole reason why we developed the 105, and why we have it in the range now. And I would say, if you pick one fuselage and you're generally right in light to medium wind conditions, I can imagine the 105 plus 5 could be nicer for you, as it's maybe a little bit easier to ride. It's less hardcore, as the front wing is a bit more to the back, and that also gives more control once you get to stronger winds. If you have two fuselages, I think the 105 plus 7.5, and then down to that, the 100 plus 3 is the best, because that's exactly what I'm using um, in PWA as well. And that's yeah, that. Those are the two new ones, right? Or am I missing something?
Nope, you got it. And we also had a question about the wings. I think somebody joined a bit late here. Which wings will you use in the PWA?
Yeah, we have to. We will go to a bit more medium and big front wings. So I'm training the whole winter already on the 560 and 620. The 620 mostly I use with 8.7, and then the 560 I'm using with the 7.5, 6.4, and 5.4, because those are the sizes I will register this year in terms of sales, and then those two front wings. So it's a medium and a big front wing. And sadly, yeah, we're not allowed to go to. I cannot bring the 400 on the race course, as I'm, first of all, too scared to register like a 400 and a 620, because I need a big front wing when it's windy. Sorry, when it's light. I mean, otherwise you simply cannot get around the course. But I to use that big of a wing until 23, 24 knots to then jump to the 400 is also not realistic. So yeah, it's really, in the PWA, really more about depowering with the back wing angle and that kind of stuff, depowering the foil in order to still use it as much as possible. And it's actually crazy, because last year I was very quickly going to a smaller wing, and now with changing your sail setup and that kind of stuff, you can really long hold the bigger wings as well, luckily.
Right. We have another question. Do you first change the fuselage or the front wing?
Yeah, it's hard to say. To be honest, I really like to kind of already before, let's say, know what I'm gonna use. Like the big front wing, I'm actually using on the 105 fuselage all the time. When I'm training on this all the time, I know exactly how it will react when a certain thing happened. So when I'm on the 87, I know I'm on the big front wing. I know I'm on the 105 fuselage, and that's basically what I'm using all the time. And again, once it gets more windy, 7.5 and down, I'm usually on the 100+3 fuselage with the medium front wing for the same reason. And if I feel that the spots, because of the water and the pressures and stuff, don't have a lot of drive in the foil, then I'm taking the 105 fuselage. Um, but beside that, I'm basically using the same setup. So if it picks up and I go to the 6.4, I always know, like, okay, I take the 560, I take the 100+3 fuselage, and I'm not changing anymore in between the wings. So each sail kind of has their own foil setup. Yeah.
And then we have, you said depowering the back wing. Are you using shims on the backside of the back wing to depower or not?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say I usually use more power. I'm usually shimming towards more power, which goes, like, it's kind of insane. I think 0.3 millimeter is already changing like 0.1 degree of angle, and I feel it. It's annoying but true. Like, I feel the difference. So if you go to, for example, I think, which comes with the set, the -1 or the +1, I forgot which one gives more power, but the more powerful one. If you go from 1 to 0, which is already quite a huge difference, like, there's a lot more in between. So sometimes, either from plastic, I'm cutting myself small pieces to really play also with the angles in between. But in general, I'm giving the back wing a touch more power than that it comes from the factory, basically. And then, depending on how strong it gets, I'm actually depowering. But the most depowered setting I'm using is basically the back wing flat on the fuselage. I usually don't tend to depower more than that. More questions from people who told you before?
No, not in this section actually. We had another question if you have an Excel with all your settings you can share. But maybe we'll.
Oy, oy, oy. Well, to be really honest, no, I don't. I don't have, because you can see it. Uh, what I have is actually because I have new sales which are fully different. I have new boards, obviously, so everything is kind of new. What I do is I write down all my settings every day, and I all the comments, like what I tried on the sail, what I tried on the board, what I tried on the foil. um and I basically, after Tenerife is done, I will be traveling for 4 days. I'll be 38 hours on the ferry, so I have plenty of time to kind of take all the notes, put it in a little bit of an overview, and then when I go to the spots, I also always know where I can go back to and that kind of stuff. But it basically contains all my information, so I'm quite an open book, but I don't think I will publish this one. um, but no, I don't have a clear Excel sheet now. But again, like, if you need to know any kind of angle for certain setups, I'm more than happy to tell you. And I think so far I'm getting, I want to say daily, but every second or third day, I'm getting questions from basically you users, who want to know any kind of setup, any kind of angle. I mean, I'm happy to tell, and also, yeah, an open invite. Please, please let me know if you struggle with a certain setup. I'm happy to help and let you know what I would recommend you.
Awesome. Which board would you match with the different wings? I guess that's also
Yeah, it's wings and also sail dependent. I mean, also their board brands have different kind of concept, different kind of sizes. I mean, from Fnatic we have a 75 wide, 81 wide, and a 91 wide. I'm mainly using the 81 and the 91. Those are the two boards I will register for PWA. I would recommend you the 560 and bigger for the 91 wide, and the 81 wide, let's say 620 and smaller. You can go with the 660 also. It's no problem. Um, but basically, I use the 81. I prefer to use it when it gets over 15 knots, and then automatically I'm looking at the 560 front wing. I would recommend then in that case to use it with either 560 or smaller. There's also brands who have 85, which potentially is perfectly in the middle, and you can basically use it with all front wing sizes. I think it doesn't really matter which one you're using below that. But if you use the 91 wide with the 375, it's definitely possible, but I can imagine that the board is tilting a lot for such a pretty narrow span. It's high aspect, right? But like in terms compared to the big wings, it's quite narrow in span, and it gets a bit more tricky to ride, and you feel like you have more stability using a 81 wide board. Yeah.
All right. What's your perfect match in the range? Sail, front wing, fuse, and back wing.
I mean, yeah, like maybe changing the question a little bit. My favorite setup at the moment is, I would say, the 81 wide board with a 6-4 sail, the 101 mast. We'll get to the mast later, but the 101 mast, 100 plus 3 fuselage, 560 front wing, 190 back wing. I mean, that I really love that setup. Or exactly the same, but with the 5-4. With the 5-4, I was doing, I think it was yesterday. Yeah, yesterday I was doing 35.1 knots on the race course, which was incredibly quick. And yeah, I love that setup. And again, I like high wind a bit more than low winds, as everything just gets more exciting. So I would automatically mention the smaller gear. But I think that setup, I love it. I definitely love it.
Okay. Then we have, how is it to crash in 37 knots? How do you protect your body, and what to do against fear?
Hey, Tobias, let's just we're running low on time, and
Yeah.
we've only covered one thing. So we'll leave the extra questions afterwards. We'll follow up happily with people, but let's just get through the process. People ask you for it and have other things too.
Yeah. All right. Then we'll move over to the new free ride, free race wings.
Yes, they're beautiful, aren't they? I mean, this is especially. I mean, free race. If you compare it to slalom, is the ease of use gets much bigger, right? Maybe I don't know if Chris is still here to explain a little bit, or maybe Mabel can explain a little bit more about the profile and all that kind of stuff. But let that to get the comparison of why we are having now these new wings in the range is especially for the people who are searching for an easier way to still make decent speeds. I mean, the slalom wings, it's fast. You need to it is more technical, and these wings, they are kind of easier to use for the people who are falling for fun. They want to make some speeds, but they don't have to be the fastest. The jibing is easier. The stability is more. They are obviously bigger in size, so you can quicker jump to a smaller sail. Smaller sail means it's lighter, so you can foil longer. It's less physical. And I think these wings are perfect for people who want to make, again, decent speeds, They don't have to win competitions. They are doing this for fun. I see Memo unmute himself. Maybe you can jump into it.
I mean, it just, I think you sort of nailed it. You know, there's no good comparison. So I apologize, but I'll use just like cars and motorcycles. So if you think about, you know, Formula One cars, they're phenomenal. I wouldn't go anywhere else with them other than a racetrack, right? And you can get a really nice sports car and you can really enjoy it. You can drive it every weekend. You can go to work, whatever. Same thing. You know, if you look at motorcycles and you like motorcycles, you know, MotoGP, great bikes, phenomenal. I wouldn't touch them anywhere close in the street, right? And you can get a really nice sports motorcycle and have a phenomenal time, great speed. You will definitely not reach your limit of abilities, but it will be a lot more user-friendly. So what we did with the series and what Chris did is sort of focus on usability and ease of use, right? These use the same profile as the slalom wings that Jordy is using. But think of Jordy's wings as sort of Formula One or MotoGP or whatever your, you know, race equipment for a particular sport you enjoy. And they are, you know, they're weapons, right? They're fast, they're scary. There's somebody asked, you know, how do you crash at 37 knots? I'm not going to lie to you. It doesn't matter what you do. It's not nice, right? So the question is, how do you get a similar feeling? How do you get a pleasant experience? How do you feel like Jordy when you jibe, but you're not Jordy? And that these wings are that answer, right? They're user-friendly, they're elegant, they're smooth. They do use the same profile as Jordy does, but they have a little bit thicker cord. So they make it much easier for takeoff. They make it very nice to jibe. They're very predictable. They're not as sharp. They're not as jerky and jumpy as a typical race equipment. But if you get used to these wings, you have also much nicer, much more tolerant conditions going from the 70 all the way to the 90. We developed those also with our friends at Sailworks at the Gorge. They work better for choppy conditions, wavy conditions. But again, if you get used to these wings, moving from these wings to the slalom wings, they use the same profiles. It's a lot more technical, but there's no learning curve from there. It's just you're in your head and the speed. So the main thing here is kind of just smooth out the experience a little bit, make it easier, more friendly, and kind of a little bit broader range so that, you know, from the 70 to the 90 kind of creates a perfect quiver for free ride, free race. If you want to go a little bit slower and not go 37 knots, that's the wing to do it. If you want to go 37 knots, then I'll go with the slalom stuff.
Perfect.
Jordy, I think that, you know, if there are any questions afterwards, I'll happy to jump, but I'll hand it back to you.
Yeah, perfect. And maybe I can check the speed potential anyway on the 600 and see how close to 37 knots we can make that one go. But I think, you know, like to maybe compare it to normal windsurfing, you know, you have these full cam, 4-cam racing sails, and you have the 2 or 3-cam one. You know, they're still fast, they're still bad, but they're more accessible. And I think this is exactly what these wings are for foiling. So I think that basically says it about the wings, and we can go to the last subject, as we call it.
Yeah, we had one question on these. Which fuselage do they mount in the new free race wing, with 5 or 3 holes? And the answer is with 5 holes.
They're all 5 holes. The other thing about this wing, the series of wings, is they actually also design for multi-sport. So some of you that practice both sports, I know most here are hardcore windsurfers, and Jordy's going to kill me just by looking at me through the camera here. But for the ones of you who have gone to the dark side and have tried wind winging, these things are gnarly machines. Jordy would never admit that he's gone close to these wings if I say that, but they are multidisciplined. So if you use the 5-hole fuselages for any sport, these cross disciplines as well.
You know, I'm happy. I'm also happy with the winging. No worries. You know, if my wife would windsurf as well, my van would be overloaded. You know, and with the winging, it somehow fits in the corner. So for this reason, I am happy with winging. But
beautiful.
Cool. But she came from the even darker side, which was kite surfing. So again, it's it's a good thing. Yeah, let's.
I have one more question here. Compared to the 2022 freeride foil with the 1400 front wing. How come this is so much smaller?
I mean, especially I think that's really more the entry level freeride wing. I would say it's the 1400 is really about takeoff and about it doesn't have much top speed, but it is maneuverable. It's easy to jibe, all that kind of stuff. And I would say as an entry level foil, the 1400 is great. But I can imagine that there's also people who want to go from entry level but don't want to go to slalom, and that's where this comes into place, because it's more speed orientated but not difficult, all that kind of stuff which we just mentioned before. Therefore it's smaller too. And again, power also comes from two ways, right? It comes from surface, but it also comes from profile and all that kind of stuff. So and they are very high aspect, and there's probably wings which are 1200 which are not as powerful as the F900 which you see on your picture. So don't get blindsided by seeing the surface area and think they're much smaller or therefore much less powerful. No, power comes from different aspects than just the surface area. So I think, yeah, I guess that answers the question.
The way we would also position these wings is these are positioned as our until now we had the free race foil, and the free race foil had a detuned fuselage, but was using basically slalom wings. So we kind of wanted to bridge that step a little bit more properly with a proper free race wings, right? So that it doesn't replace completely the 1400 series and everything else. They stay there. But to Jordy's point, there is a range of sailors that are in between full racers and free riders, and that's where this product portfolio fits.
Right. Let's
Perfect.
move over to the mast.
Yes. So to mention the 107 mast, which you see on the left of the picture, is very easy to say one I'm not using. Why am I not using it? It's the up and downwind machine, I would say. Up and downwind racing, most of the people are using a 1 meter wide board. A wider board means more leverage. Beside that, when you push upwind, you're applying even more power on the foil. And this 107 mast is allowing you to have more leverage on that wide board and push the foil basically into a couple degrees angles more, which obviously is benefiting the racing performance a lot. For slalom, I think it's a touch. Oh, I'm getting a bit low. For slalom racing, I would say it's not necessary to have a 107. A 101 is definitely enough. We will jump into that one pretty soon. But again, the 107, I'm recommending everybody who's doing course racing on 1 meter wide boards. That's your go-to mast. And then again, if you do slalom, we're looking at the brand new 101 mast. That's the one I'm using since the last 4 or 5 months, I think. I'm using it already and having great experiences. It's everything is not everything, yeah, but basically everything is new compared to the 97 mast. The profile is different, the length is different. Therefore, I would also say the riding experience is different. The main benefits, I would say, is you feel less drag. It's really using the thinner cord on the mast. Using such a mast is really making a difference in the drag. Therefore, I have the feeling it's faster as well. And in the meantime, and is I think something that's coming from the extra 4 centimeter in the wind holes or in the jibing or in the very light, the foil feels so efficient that it's really boosting the performance. Therefore, I think all round, it's definitely a step up, and really amazing, the new 101 mast for slalom. I think I see a lot of questions popping up, so I think we can go into those. The 107 is huge. Got it yesterday. Way thicker and massive. Perfect for national course racing. Yeah, I mean that it's power, right? You need power, and when you are on crosswind or a touch downwind, you kind of want efficiency, and it has to glide. While first of all, up and downwind racing, it happens on marginal conditions, and therefore, when you have power, you can always translate this power into upwind performance. That's why it is massive. It creates a lot of power because it will just give you performance, and also going down. I think usually you take the back foot out of the foot strap, put it in the middle in order to go as deep downwind as possible. And then again, the power helps you to give the drive to go so far down. So yeah, that's the whole reason why we are having this mast in the range. What do you do when I want a 101 but the water depth is a meter? To be really honest, even with a 97 centimeter mast and the water depth is a meter, I would be a little bit scared, huh?
The answer here, you defy physics. That's what you got to do.
Huh?
You have to defy physics.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta stay high. Like to be honest, I'm never sailing on a spot which is so on the edge. I can imagine. Yeah, there's in Austria. There's Lake Neusiedl, but I mean, you have to foil on 80, or I think even on, I see foils with a 70 meter mast, and all the front wings, they get destroyed because they're hitting stuff all the time. So yeah, we are not taking care of extending the mast length by 3-4 centimeters, and then not being able to sail on spots which are a meter deep, because it's something. Yeah, it comes down to two little margins, I would say. Maybe if you go into the water, you need to step one step further, so the water is a touch deeper, but beside that, it's not. It doesn't feel like such a major difference on the spots where most of us are sailing.
The only other option is, we do for every once in a while going to shallow locations is just go to the shorter aluminum masts, right? We have those starting at 72 centimeters, going to 85 centimeters. So, if you're going occasionally there, they're fully compatible with all of our existing fuselages and wings. So you could use that, but definitely the 101 is not going to fit in the 1 meter deep water, just physically impossible.
Yeah. Next question. Do you change the mast rake when changing the wings, or is it just one rake for all? So far, I'm experiencing one rake for all. And on the, let me think, on the 91 wide, it's around 3.5 degree. On the 81 wide, it's around 3.2 degrees. So this is the angle of the, when you measure. You've maybe seen it on the YouTube series last year's we have this device where we are measuring the angles, and we put it on the board, put it on 0, then we put it on the fuselage, and then it shows a number. I'm using average between 3.3 and 3.5 in light winds. On the bigger board, it's more 3.5. On the smaller board, it's more 3.2, 3.3. So it's not that I'm changing wing or I'm changing something, then I take the foil out because I'm also putting another shim in the fin box. No, I'm keeping this the same. I'm not playing with that anymore. Some foil brands are changing their mast fuselage wing connections. Is F4 considering it in the near future? I mean, for 2023, we have what we have here. Beside that, I mean, development never stops. What's happening in the future, if we don't know, but of course, we're always keeping options open if we see anything works better. But again, for now, everything is just fitting into each other, and and anything we present now from the 2023 stuff is fitting on the 2022, 21, maybe even 20 stuff. Have you actually measured your speed increase just changing from 97 to 101 mast? Have you actually measured your... Oh, sorry, it's the same question twice. I did, like, for me, it's tough to one-on-one check on the GPS whether I'm faster, because if the wind is increasing 2 knots and I'm faster while changing mast, I'm kind of, let's say, getting mind fucked, no, because I see like, oh, I'm faster, so I should be faster, but actually it's the wind that increased. So I'm really I tried one-on-one with somebody else, like going with the 97, going with the 101, and I think top speed, I think a touch, but average speed was definitely higher, because I think in the lows I felt like the mast has way more drive. So in average I feel a speed increase definitely from the 101 towards the 97, but I cannot call you an exact number like it's 1 knot faster or 1.5 knot faster. I don't want to claim anything there, because again I think it's hard to claim such a things, as the wind is not the most stable thing we have. Not the most stable weather element. The connection fuse mast is so stiff right now. I think it's still up to date. Yeah, I mean, I don't know another brand who's making stiffer stuff than we do. Especially the mast we have are incredible stiff, and I'm quite sure some other brands are jealous of this. So yeah, therefore what we have is working. So definitely no need for urgent change. That's it on questions from what I see in the chat on the right. Tobias, you have anything more?
No, same here on my end.
Nice.
So if there is no more questions, thank you everybody for joining, and thank you Jordy for doing the presentation. Much appreciated. And have a great evening. And if anybody that didn't manage to join, yeah.
Tobias, one more question. Why did you change the connection from the mast? We had the little notch where the shims fitted perfectly, and now we have a straight line. Maybe you tell us about that.
So there's no specific standard for tuttle boxes. The vast majority of boards come out of 2 factories in the world. There's also some different things, but because of the differences, a lot of people had issues with shims that were doing the rake shims. The mast can actually move in the tuttle, right? Never bottoms out. So we ended up having people crushing the shims and doing all sorts of stuff. With a flat top of the mast, it covers most boards because they have flat tops of their tuttle boxes. So when the mast is in, it's set at the right rake that Chris has set by design. So that's very helpful. Number 2, you distribute the load equally across the shims should you need to use one, right? Otherwise, it was basically one shim on one side of the mast, and all the pressure was going there. And no matter what we made it out of, even if it's titanium, it would get crushed. So with the new masts, now that they're flat, you actually can use flat shims that distribute the load equally across the whole mast, and it's a lot more practical for the for across all tuttle boxes out there. There's no standard, so it's each one of these things is a suggestion and kind of a practice.
But I'm still using the same shims, Felix. Like the shims that don't go all the way. Like, no worries, you can use them. It's absolutely no problem. I mean, those shims, I'm using metal ones. They were not specifically made for the little point we had before, because other brands which some also have flat, they were using the same So there's no need for different shims. Not at first, maybe not at all, because I've been using now since quite a while, and I'm using exactly the same shims, and it's working perfectly fine.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
And I see one more
Felix.
question popping up about we have two different 101 masts, which are actually not in the picture, but we have the normal and the GPR mast. Maybe you exactly know I mean, I know the difference, but maybe you can say it in the words you like to hear it.
I mean, so that the GPR mast is basically, first of all, it's handmade in our factory in Europe. It is handmade completely. It's not. We use different technology. We use different mold technology altogether. It's where we build the vast majority of our race gear. So it's it's not a it's in our own studio, which is where all the original designs get built. And so the big difference there, aside from the fact that it's handmade by our technicians and it's specifically race focused, is also the fact that in it we have a contract with Mitsubishi and we use ultra high modulus carbon. It is a completely different technology. It's not a pre-preg technology. We use tow carbon, which has stiffness 3 times the one we use in our normal masts. And so what that does is basically this mast as a profile itself is the same as the 101, the standard 101 mast, but the GPR mast is built by hand. I wouldn't say it has better tolerances, but each one is sort of handmade by our technicians and inspected, obviously. It's not a mass production. But the most important thing is that inside that mast, we actually use carbon that's got stiffness of 121. So your average high modulus carbon is about a 60 to 80. This is almost twice the stiffness. And it's tow carbon. So the rigidity of the mast is significantly more. There is a pricing difference, which is also significant. Obviously, labor cost, material cost is got very different economics between Asia versus Europe. And so I would caution this mast is very, very high performance oriented. It is extremely well performing. It's very, very well tuned, but it does push the limits of a use case to be able to get to that advantage, right? To be able to push a mast to need that level of stiffness, to be able to push a mast to need that level of speed. I would caution people get excited and then they go buy it, but it is an extremely high performing weapon. So unless you're above intermediate and more in advanced sailor, I would strongly suggest you stick with the standard mast. It's just you would never get the advantage of paying the extra price for that. If you're racing, if you're really pushing the limits, if you're really pushing your foils, really pushing speed, really require the stiffness of the 97 mast versus the slightly more lively feel of the 101 mast, then GPR is the mast for you.
Perfect. I don't know if we are having a 1 hour time limit, which would be in 1 minute. But I think it's also nice to mention that we have a new YouTube series coming up very soon, which basically is a full-on explanation about the whole range. So a lot of it has been said today. But anyway, last year we tried to get all of you a little bit better understanding of what are rigs doing, what are the wing sizes doing, and this time we have 5 different episodes about explaining the whole range and making it easier for you and anyone else who wants to buy the foil, of what to choose and help a little bit the decision making. So that's something that's coming up. I don't know, next week or shortly in the week after, but before the season starts in Europe, that will be online for everybody.
That's I believe it's before the end of the week actually that they're going to launch. So they're super cool, and Jordy is almost as good of an actor as he's a windsurfer. So that's a really high bar. I know you're going to enjoy it, and thank you, Jordy, for putting them together. There was one more question, and I guess we jump just because of respect for everybody's time. Are we thinking about hollow masts and weight reduction? It's one of these battles that it's neither here nor there. What we're known for is the race performance, the stiffness, the speed. What you can see in today's presentation, especially with the free ride wings, is we are expanding our portfolio. We are expanding the coverage in the market, and we are listening to our end users and their needs. Lighter masts for some of the other disciplines that we've discussed today is applicable. For windsurfing, really the pressure of board and sailor and sails, masts, booms, and everything else is pretty radical. So it's a little bit hard to make a good mast that meets our standards that's hollow. We're looking at it. We always look at it as a part of our R&D process. It will also help drive the price down. But quite frankly, nobody has asked us for a softer mast. Everybody keeps asking for harder masts. So definitely we're looking at it, both because of economics and dropping the price, as well as performance and making things lighter. It's just until we get to a point where we can make it stiff enough, it will continue to be something we just look at for now.
Perfect.
All right. Then I guess that wraps it up. Thank you, Memo, for that. And thanks again, Jordy, for sharing. And to everybody else, thank you for joining. Have a great evening, and feel free to let anybody know about that this recording will be available on our YouTube channel as well shortly. Thanks a lot.
Thanks everybody for joining us. Thank you. Thanks, Tobias. Thank you, Jordy. Appreciate it.
Cheers, guys.